Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sumo Logic Cert Jam Day 1. We welcome all of you. Thank you very much for your time today. It's a pleasure, privilege to have you here with us. And we're extremely honored to do the first virtual Cert Jam. We typically do this at a location, but this time, because of the situation, we are moving into virtual. Thanks a lot. What is that we want to cover in the next 2 days? We have Sumo Logic fundamentals being covered today 2 to 5, and day 2 is Sumo Logic search mastery, which is again 2 to 5, followed by the user group. So I'll share a little more details in the next couple of slides. From your perspective, what is the advantage of taking part the certification? So one is the trainer-led certification and the certification exam that you would take at the end of it. What we have seen from users who have taken the certification is that they have been able to almost double their ability to use complex operations and search optimizations once they have certified themselves. So that's really one key aspect of what we are doing, and you're being part of this, is that you've already been introduced to Sumo Logic, probably you're already working for a couple of months, but this certification empowers you and gives you the ability to go to the next level. One aspect is also the certifications you could share on your social channels that surely give all of you, I would say, a lot of visibility in the industry. Second part is with what you get the skill out of this, you will be able to solve more complex problems for your organization. With that, who is here today? We have participants from around 158 companies who have registered and been part of this, which covers around 56 cities of the country. The profiles are DevSecOps and security people who have joined us. I could see there are more than 100 people who are here certifying today. A little bit about introduction from our side. We have Harshil, who's the Vice President of Engineering. Myself, I am Paul Rajesh. I'm an enterprise sales rep based out of Bangalore. I would also like to introduce Justin. He's based out of the North and North. Justin.
Hey, thanks, Paul, for that introduction. So everyone, thank you so much for making time and being here. I'll say that it's a very good platform for you to learn, enrich, and it just doesn't stop here. You can connect with us later, and we would be willing to help you wherever we can. And I'll say just use this platform to the best of your abilities. So yes, nice to meet you all. And yeah, we can connect on LinkedIn afterwards if required. So yeah, wishing you luck. Thank you.
We also have Poonam with us, Poonam and Tram with us. Poonam is Customer Success Manager to making sure that yourself and the organization that you represent get full value out of the Sumo Logic investments that you have done. Poonam, if you can have your introduction, that'll be great.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for the introductions. Team, very happy to see you here and take maximum out of this sessions. And if you need any support, reach out to us. And thanks for joining in. Looking forward for this session. Over to you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, I want to introduce John and Suresh to you. John is, so this is an instructor-led Cert Jam. We do have it on our portal, but it becomes very powerful when somebody who has worked on Sumo Logic for years and who brings in a lot of experience. So John and Suresh brings in that experience, and John would lead the technical training today. I'm very happy to introduce John. And Suresh. Suresh is the lead SC based out of Bangalore. He would also be assisting John in the session today as well as tomorrow. John, a word of introduction from you and Suresh.
Thanks, Paul. As mentioned, my name is John Meredith. I'll be your instructor today. A couple things. If you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, as if you put them in the Q&A box, when we answer them, everybody will be able to see your question and the answer, so everybody gets the benefit of it. If you're having issues, technical issues, that sort of thing, feel free to put that in the chat box. You do not need to raise your hand for any questions, so just go ahead and ask your questions as we cover the material. So thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Suresh?
Hi everyone, this is Suresh here. I'm a senior sales engineer based out of Bangalore. Wish you all a very good session today. If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A and we will be happy to answer that.
Thank you. Thanks, John and Suresh. As I mentioned, the agenda of today is around 3 hours. So 2 to 3:30, we do the fundamental presentation. John and Suresh would take through the aspects of what we plan to cover as part of fundamentals, 15 minutes break, and then the fundamentals continue, and there's a certification. It's a short exam, I think around 20, 30 questions. They're pretty simple, but the moment you pass it, you actually get the certificate, which you could print it, or you could also post it on your social channels, etc. So that's on the day one, the first day, which is 2 to 5. And what we have is the second day. So once you have done the fundamental certifications and training, then we move to the second day, which is 2 to 5 tomorrow, which is search mastery. So this gets you the training or content related to how do you really search and use Sumo Logic for advanced querying. And once you become a master, the advantage is, as I said, we have seen people able to make double the value of the platform, make more complex, more powerful, and I would say value to the business, add more value to the business, because then you're able to see it in a more efficient or an effective way. What we have post that, 5 to 6:30 is the user group. This is really a couple of our customers who are speaking in terms of their journey on Sumo Logic, some of the use cases they have, how they have leveraged Sumo Logic and their journey. But it's also a celebration of your certifications that you do today and tomorrow. So 2 aspects. One is we want to celebrate your graduation as certified Sumo Logic, Fundamental Certified, and Sumo Logic Search Mastery Certified. So tomorrow is a celebration of that. And then we also have industry leaders like Pranesh from MedLife, Marut from Cars24, Katresh, Head of Infrastructure from C5, Balaji, and Harshil, who's our VP Engineering Country Head. As part of the user, as part of the community, Sumo Logic community, we also associated, we have associated with an NGO, which is Aid India. We are on behalf, and they would also speak about what they're doing, especially in the COVID situation. And on behalf of the community, we are also making contribution to them as part of the user group. With that, I would welcome all of you. Have a great day of learning. As John mentioned, if you have any questions, please put it on the chat panel. We will address them. Have a great time. And if you have any questions, please, you can reach myself and Justin, Poonam, Suresh, anyone in the team for that. One aspect is we used to do the certification on premise. We used to run it at an event at a hotel. It used to be very, very great but because of that, we have moved it to virtual. But we hope to be soon on face-to-face training soon, probably sometime in December or January. With that, welcome, and we really appreciate the time you're going to spend with us. I know it's a busy week, but you still have taken the time out to spend with us and learn Sumo Logic. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll hand it over to John. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and let's go to work. So just want to reiterate something. If you've got a question, the best place to put it is in the Q&A box, because if you put it in the Q&A box, as we answer the question, everybody gets a chance to see it. So if you put it in the Q&A box, you put your question in there, we'll put a response in there, and everybody gets the benefit of your question as well as the answer. So I highly recommend that you put them in the Q&A box. If you're having technical issues, problems, things along those lines, feel free to put that stuff in the chat box. So just a little addendum there to the instructions. And again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I'm sure we're going to make it worth your time. So We're going to talk about the Sumo General Fundamentals certification, and here's our goal for the short time we have together today. Going to give you a little overview of Sumo Logic. Again, some of you probably have a fair amount of experience with Sumo Logic. Some of you may not have any. So we're just going to level set here and focus on kind of an overview of Sumo Logic. Then we're going to give you a use case. We're going to focus on a fictitious company called Troubleshooting, where they're having a problem, and we're going to use Sumo Logic to identify and fix the problem. So then we're going to jump right into some labs, and we're going to spend the rest of the day doing some labs, 7 labs specifically, talking about the data. So the question is, where does my data come from? We're going to show you in this environment, this training environment, where the data comes from, and obviously expect you to be able to take that same code, that same information, and apply it to your environment. So if you're not familiar with what your environment has to offer, you'll be able to see it. We'll be able to search and parse and analyze our data a little bit, do some analysis, monitor various critical events, talk about creating and modifying dashboards, as well as creating alerts. And then the last 45 minutes or so will be time for an exam. The exam is actually scheduled to run an hour. So if you want to hang around and you need the full hour or whatever, that's fine. I will stay here with you. So you get plenty of time to take the exam. The exam is 30 questions. It is open book, open note, open slides. I'll show you, we can get a copy of the slides, all kinds of resources, and feel free to ask us questions about the exam. So if you get stuck on something, our goal is to help you. It is not to cause you confusion or any issues. We want to help you. Our goal is to help you succeed. So what does Sumo Logic do for me? Well, as you probably are aware, maybe some of you are aware, back in the day, I used to be an IT manager. And so I would have killed for a Sumo Logic tool back in those days, because I used to come in about an hour early every morning, and I used to review my logs, my backup logs, my Active Directory logs, see if anybody locked themselves out, my email logs to see if any emails got bounced, things like that. And this would have just saved me so much time. It easily would have saved me that hour I spent, and I probably could have condensed it to 5 minutes or less. So it's really, it's a powerful tool that, like I said, gives us lots of flexibility here. Specifically, it has an area of operational analytics where I want to look at the health of my systems, right? Are my services up? Are my systems running? Whether you're on the cloud or you're on-prem, doesn't make any difference. So I want to see the care and feeding of our environments and see how they're doing. Obviously, a big thing in today's world is security analytics. Do I have a user or a particular set of users who are having problems trying to log in? That could be indicative of somebody trying to hack into your system. Do I have issues with users who are logging in from multiple IP addresses, which are not co-located at all? That could be, again, another indication of some problems. So lots of little security analytics dashboards and things like that you can run and create, as well as business analytics. If I've got a web server, what pages are the people coming to? What do they find interesting? What do they find not interesting? Give me an idea of how the health of my business is doing. When you look at, if you've got a storefront, through a web server, you can see exactly what's going on. And then this new area of global insights, this is going to allow us to see how your business is doing, perhaps compared to others in your industry or compared to others in your region. So if you're thinking about security, you know the details of how your security is set up, but with regards to attacks and denial of service and things like that, how am I doing compared to others maybe in my geography? So fairly valuable stuff there. Down here on the second tier, the second layer here, we are a cloud-based platform. We were born in the cloud, raised in the cloud. So we support multi-tenancy, advanced analytics, machine learning. You'll see today and tomorrow some good examples of some of the advanced analytics and the deep machine learning that we have in this product that you can leverage and take advantage of. Because we are a cloud-based product, we can scale up, scale down, scale as we need to. Very scalable, very elastic. We are an API-first company. So you'll see we have a series of APIs, and I'll point you to the documentation on that, where you can make calls into us, and also we can also make calls out to other systems. You'll find in the exercise I'm going to show you shortly that we've got a webhook into Slack, and we can send messages from Sumo Logic into Slack as well as other things. So if you're running Teams, you can do that as well. Probably the most important piece of information here on the slide is the out-of-the-box security. We work very hard to maintain our SOC 2 compliance, our PCI compliance, and all of these various compliances that you see here. We constantly maintain those. We are rigorous and very disciplined on our security, on our certifications, as well as attaining new certifications as the business continues to grow. As I mentioned, we are born on the cloud, but if you have on-prem legacy equipment, that's fine. We can get data from it and let you see that data and let you understand what's going on. Obviously, if you've got information as a service or platform as a service, we support those as well. Support a wide variety of various applications, not the least of which is Zoom. So for those of you who use Zoom, we've got some dashboards and applications already set up that you could install and see how your folks are using Zoom. Software as a service, Salesforce, and those sort of products. We integrate with those very nicely, as well as various third-party applications. So we've pretty much got the gambit here covered. And as you can see, we do a lot of different things. Now, I'm going to stop the slides for a second, and I want to focus on a use case. So, and again, if we go through this, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and Suresh will take care of answering them for me. So again, we've got a team here going, myself presenting, and Suresh is helping me in the background by answering the questions and helping any specific things that you might be interested in. But we have this fictitious company here called Travel Logic, and with Travel Logic, I can book flights, and I can book hotels, and I can book cars, and I can just have myself a grand old time. Making my travel plans and that sort of thing. Now, you think with the coronavirus that the Travel Logic business would be failing, like a lot of travel businesses are doing now, but because it's all simulated data, it's running great. Okay, business is good, business couldn't be better. But as it turns out, we happen to use Slack here in Sumo Logic, and as it turns out here in Slack, I'm getting an alert telling me that I've got an issue here with my platform here and Travel Logic. So let me just jam down here to the end, but they're all the same message, just so you know. I have a gateway response time outlier message. Okay, so I've got a problem. And I can click on either one of these two links and it will take me to an appropriate dashboard. I'll show you where those are in just a second. But I have an issue with a gateway response time outlier. There's my time range, and then I can go ahead and investigate. So since we have not been into Sumo Logic, let's go ahead and take a moment and log in. By the way, in a little bit, I'm going to have you log into our training environment, and we'll go into this in much more detail. But for right now, I want to go into our our demo environment. And here in our library where we can share dashboards and searches and things like that, here is my production Travel Logic area. And here in my Travel Logic production area, I can see that, I've got my business area broken down by business, by operations, by security. And just for fun, if I look at my business, for example, and do my business overview, I've got a nice little dashboard here that proceeds to tell me my various statuses. So my payment service status is in red. That's obviously not a good thing. Application status is in red. Website seems to be running just fine. But I can see where people are booking from, where they're booking their flights, their hotels, their cars. Additionally, down here, I can see over time, as a function of time, how people are doing with regards to flight bookings and to see if I have any outliers. Over here on my hotel booking, you'll see I do have a little triangle down there in the corner. That indicates that I've got a bit of an outlier. Each one of these panels I can take if I want to, and I can expand it so that I can fill up my screen so I can analyze it and look at it a little closer. Additionally, each one of these panels represents a query. And so I can use this information to kind of get a sense for how is my business doing. So I have looks like 12 panels here. That means I have 12 underlying queries. And I can see, for example, in this query, how much of my business is car, how much of it's hotel, how much of it's flight. And I see my hotel business is a little off, so maybe I want to try to promote that somehow. When you book a flight and you book a car, please don't forget to book that hotel. I can see my bookings and see how they're doing, and I can see my hourly rate of booking. So as I mentioned, we're receiving over 8,000 bookings per hour. So business for us is really, really good. And again, I can go into other details looking specifically at more about the cars, the flights, that sort of thing. Now, the reason I wanted to go in here is because I have an operational problem. I have a system problem. And so I'm going to start with my Travel Logic operational overview to see what's going on. And again, I have a series of panels. And again, they're color-coded, pretty simple. Green is good, yellow is questionable, red is bad. And the red one that catches my eye here is the largest one, the largest number. My checkout service is generating a lot of errors. Now, if I go back to my Slack message that alerted me, it says here I can go to the operational overview. Had I clicked on this, this would have taken me to this specific dashboard. Okay, this specific dashboard. And what I want to do is I want to examine my checkout service a little bit closer. So if I click on this particular checkout service, it's now going to take me to another dashboard, which is my Travel Logic services detail. This tells me information about this particular service, my checkout service. And again, if I went back to my original Slack message, there's a little link here to go to that services detail. So I could have clicked on either one of these two to immediately take me and find my problem. Now, when I look at my bookings, I see that I've got successful bookings, and then about half past, all of a sudden, and by the way, these times are local times for me, okay? So if the times seem a little off to you, it's because I'm looking at my local time for me, and I'm on the US East Coast. So, but about 4:30 in the morning, things started going a little crazy for me. And by the way, I can click on these legends and filter things out if I want to. So I can see only the failures, or I can see the successes and the failures, that sort of thing. It is interesting to note, if I turn off the failures, that I was still having some successful transactions, but I've also got some failure transactions in there somewhere too. Also, another issue is that this problem sort of fixed itself. And so this is one of those, technology dilemmas that we occasionally run into, where I've got a problem and then somehow magically it fixes itself. It's like, oh, those are real difficult to troubleshoot. But we're going to troubleshoot this, and we're going to investigate and figure out what's going on. If I look over my errors over the last 7 days, this particular panel, I see that I've got some errors, again, starting at 4:30. And if I turn off today's errors, I see I've not had any errors over the previous 6 days. So I'm just getting errors starting at about 4:30 in the morning, which again, for me is about 29 minutes ago. Down here in my errors by node, I can see that my checkout service, if I put a cursor on here, my checkout service is generating a lot of errors, 1,679. And this checkout node is generating the same amount of errors. These helper nodes are running just fine. No problems with these helper nodes, these worker nodes. So obviously I'm starting to get the opinion something seriously wrong with my checkout service. I need to focus on that. Over here, I can see my latency. And so about when I started having problems about 4:30, I also started developing some latency issues. So here I can see my latency, my change in latency, as well as my latency average. And again, about 4:30, I started seeing some issues here. Up here, I have a chart that shows me my CPU and my memory. So these dashed lines up here, these green dashed lines, are my memory. And then here I have my various CPUs. And everything looks pretty normal except for this one right there. So this one is my checkout service CPU. And my checkout service started to spike and started showing some errors and some problems here. So this is the one I want to try to thread, and this is the one I want to try to follow up with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to examine this one closer. I'm going to look at the underlying query that makes this particular panel up. So I'm going to click on this icon, and I'm going to go ahead and see this information. Now, this is our uniform messaging or metrics and logs. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to see some metrics, as well as I also get some information from my logs. So down here, it says my source category, and we'll talk about what a source category is in a little bit. I am looking at all of my travel logs. If I get rid of the star for a second, you'll see I've got a pick list. My travel logs consist of my account logs, my admin logs, my checkout logs, my metrics logs. You get the idea. So I got lots of logs from data that I'm seeing, and I'm specifically looking for the word error or exception. error or exception. And then up here, as far as my metrics go, I'm looking at my memory usage, and I'm also looking at my CPU total. So here again is my memory. It's looking pretty good. Here's my CPU. Everybody's looking good except for this one right here. And I notice that when I see this, and this type of display allows me to see my metrics, but because it's also integrated with my logs, I have this little heat map up here. And this heat map show me and correlate my metric information to my log information. And so what I'm seeing here is that in my travel logs, I'm looking for the word error exception. And for here, you know, I had 114 messages, and there I had 20 messages. Well, all of a sudden I start seeing 220 messages, 295 messages. So I'm starting to see a lot more messages with the word error or exception. So I'm going to sit there and focus on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my shift key, and on this heat map, I'm going to click on this heat map. And that's going to take me into my logs and let me see exactly what kind of error messages I'm getting. So again, I'm looking at my logs. I'm looking at all of my logs, looking for the word error exception. And I'm going to change this because I think the problem's in my checkout service. Actually, I'm pretty sure my problem's in my checkout service. So as I start typing in here checkout, you'll see it tells me, we'll type ahead, you know, search forwarding lets me see that. Additionally, I'm going to change this because this is 1 minute's worth of time. When I clicked on that heat map, I was focused on 1 minute worth of time, and I want to change this and look over the last, say, 60 minutes. So I can either hit the return key on my keyboard, or I can click the start button to rerun this query. So now I am looking at, again, my logs, and I'm looking for any log that has the word error or exception. You'll notice here I've got in the middle a heat map, and this heat map shows me the number of messages. No messages, no messages, no messages. All of a sudden, about 4:30, I start getting messages. So this is a, you know, I've got a good indicator that something's going wrong here at 4:30. Now, what I want to do is I can take this and I can start going through my logs and start figuring out what's going on, okay? But that is 7,049 log messages to go through. And I'd rather let the system work for me. So there's a couple things I'm going to do here. While this will tell me the error, it may not tell me what caused the error. So I'm going to remove this error exception text, and I'm going to rerun this. And you'll notice now I'm getting a bunch of messages throughout the day, okay? And so what I want to do is I'm going to use the function and the power of Sumo Logic. So here I'm going to do something called the log reduce. And when I click on this button called log reduce, it's going to change my query and add a pipe log reduce command. But more importantly, what it's doing is it's combining my like messages. So over the last 60 minutes, it's going to combine my like messages together to make it easy for me to find the proverbial needle in a haystack. So as I'm going through my messages and as it's running, and down here I get an indicator, you know, status, gathering results, how long it's taking, the number of results and stuff that I have. Now I know from experience this takes about 38 seconds. So I'll just bear with it because again, it's going through each log message, it's combining them. So it takes a couple of seconds. So we're done. It's now done gathering results. I had 57,473 messages, log messages. Of that 57,000, 8,950 are this message right here. Now this is a normal message. This means I was doing a transaction, everything worked fine. Remember, during the 60 minutes, I had things working and things not working. So this is a normal message, and the stars denote where I have different information. So remember, we combined like messages. Well, some of the messages are unique, and so those values are marked out as stars. So all of this stuff right here is all standard. Everything's working great. I want to jump down to my first error. So here I have an error message. I've got about 1,675 occurrences of this, and this is a Python script error. So this is a Python script error. I'll look for more information about it in just a second. But I also have 1,675 of this message. And this message says I'm getting a bad handshake. The SSL routines, my certificate verification failed on my prod environment. Now, if you think about it, you know, we've got digital certificates and we use PKI to talk to maybe credit card systems or other systems. So the data's got to be encrypted using public key infrastructure, and it uses a digital certificate on this server for that purpose. So this is saying I can't verify the certificate. In fact, the certificate verification failed on the Travel Logic payments. So what I have is I have a certificate problem on my payment server that's causing things not to work. So I pretty much got a good idea of, I've got a problem here with my digital certificates, and I can direct my network operations folks or my admin, or I can just go in there and do it myself if I know what I'm doing. But I really don't know why it's occurred. I know it happened, but I don't know why. And this is why I expanded this to 60 minutes, and this is why I got rid of the error messages. Because what I'm going to do is I want to look at, I looked at the high counts here, and the high counts will usually show you the errors, but the low counts might show me what the problem was. So if I click on count to sort this in ascending order, now I see I've got a regular old message here. I've got an error message here, which is kind of an outlier. Here's the message I'm looking for. Here I'm noticing that I booted up the system and my Travel Logic application started a cluster, and its version is 1.14 dev. 1.14 dev? This is a prod environment. This shouldn't be it. Oh, I bet you. I wonder if somebody moved a dev environment, promoted a dev environment to prod, and they forgot to update the certificate. So now I've got a pretty good sense for what I think the problem is. Now I can notify my network operations folks. I can, talk to my admin. I can get this fixed. I pretty much have a good idea here. And sure enough, that is exactly the problem. Somebody took one of my dev environments, promoted it to prod, and forgot to change the certificate. Now I could also, if I wanted to, go in here. And in here, I could also look at my build pipeline to see who did that. So I have some build and deployment logs, so I could identify, what individual did that and maybe provide them a little bit of training or help them prevent this from happening in the future. Okay. But that's our use case. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So here I have gone from some sort of alert, could have been a Slack message, could be an email, could be whatever, into my dashboards, my high-level panels, which give me status indicators. Then I went into my metrics, and my metrics typically tell me what is going on, okay? And so I can see my metrics, and from my metrics, I went into my logs, and my logs show me why it's going on. So my metrics tell me what, my logs tell me why. And you may want to know that coming up later today. So I see we got a couple of questions and a couple of things in the chat box. Let me peruse those real quick. Make sure we're all in good shape, okay? Yep, okay, great. And let's just see what we got here in the questions. Okay. Please explain the relevance column. Does it matter slightly? Hang on a second. Let's go back to that relevance column. Relevance here is just a confidence factor here of the relevance factor could play a role in this. It's a matter of how many, the relevance of the count here. But in this case, you can see they're all pretty much all have the same relevance. This one has a slightly more significant relevance. Also, additionally, you can also put some promote or demote this once you investigate it. So once you investigate a particular message on here, you can put some tribal knowledge that says this is really important, want you to pay attention to it, or this really isn't, the error message doesn't really reflect what's going on, just kind of ignore it or pay less attention to it. So there's relevance, and again, these thumbs up, thumbs down status indicators that you can use. As well as, by the way, you can edit this, you can split this stuff up. Again, we've aggregated it up. We want to split it up if we want to. We'll talk more about this as we go forward, okay? So thanks for asking. Let me get back in here. And let's talk about Sumo Logic data flow. In order to be able to analyze data and visualize it and all that stuff, first we got to collect it. So the first thing we typically do is data collection. And there we use collectors. Now, if you're in the cloud, AWS, Azure, that sort of thing, the collectors are already there. We just need the URL and we need an account that has permissions to get the data that we need. So those collectors are already there. They're already ready to go. But if you're on-prem, then we do need you to install a collector. The collector is a little Java-based applet that's going to just basically take your sources, encrypt it, and send it up to the Sumo Logic cloud. Okay, so you would install some collectors if you need to, and we'll talk about whether they're installed collectors or hosted collectors in just a minute. But then underneath that collector, and think of the collector kind of as a highway or a piping system that lets you get the log data from your source, from your systems, into the Sumo Logic cloud. So the collector is nothing more than the pipe system that gets it there, or the highway that gets it there, however you want to look at it. Then we've got sources. So my sources are the actual logs that I want to ingest into Sumo Logic. Maybe I want to ingest your web server logs. Maybe I want to ingest your database logs. Maybe I want to ingest your authentication logs. Maybe I want to ingest your firewall logs. All of those would be valid sources. And by the way, we teach how to set up these data collectors and these sources in our administration class. So if you want to learn more about that, that's going to be in our administration class. Then over here, I've got my searching and analyzing. So now that I've got my data coming in, now I want to search and analyze it. We've got a bunch of operators that we can use. It's almost SQL-ish, structured query language-ish, as far as how our syntax goes. But a series of operators and functions that we can use, as well as charts we can build. Once we start aggregating things, counting them, summing them, that sort of thing, we can create visualizations, bar charts, line charts, map charts even. And then from there, then we can build our dashboards, and our dashboards consist of those panels I talked about, and each one of those panels consists of a query, and then I can generate alerts if I want to as well, to do some proactive monitoring. So I'm only notified about specific outliers or specific problems rather than being notified for everything. Okay? So that's typically our Sumo Logic data flow. Now, back to collectors for a second. Two major categories of collectors: installed collectors. So if you've got a bunch of prem equipment or a bunch of servers, you can install a collector on each one of those servers if you want to. That collector, as I said, is a little Java application that's going to go ahead and encrypt your data, and it's going to send it through your firewall into the Sumo Logic cloud. If you want to, if you've got machines that are not connected to the internet, you can also set up a consolidated installed collector. It's just a collector that points to these systems to get the data off of those, the logs off of those, and then encrypts it and forwards it on to the Sumo Logic cloud, as well as maybe your firewall system. So you can have a consolidated installed collector or just regular old installed collectors. Over here, you've got your hosted collectors. So if you're running on AWS or Azure, Google Cloud Platform, the collector's already there. All we really need to do is to find the source. Where is the data? Is it on the S3 bucket? Is the CloudWatch, CloudTrail data? What do we want to grab here? Same with Azure. Do you want to grab monitor, data from your network monitor? Where do we want to grab stuff? Additionally, you'll find there's a bunch of cloud-based type products that exist for single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. Of course, we can also grab information from software as a service. We don't need to install a collector here. We're just going to go grab it through an API. But you got your, Google, your Office 365, your Salesforce, that sort of thing. So this is where the data comes from. The last conversation piece I want to have here with regards to background stuff, before we really start getting into Sumo Logic and start playing around, is this concept of metadata tags. We have some built-in metadata tags that we use, okay? So if you want to, filter by a specific collector, you can say _collector equals, and then the name of your collector, or _source equals, and the name of your source, right? We also have source host, which is the host name of the machine that we're getting the data from. And then also _source name, which is the name and path of the log files. So these four are all fine, well, and good, but we recommend as a best practice, as a proven practice, as a high recommendation, that instead of using these four metadata tags, you use this source category tag. And this source category tag is freely configurable. So you can configure it based on your structure. And you're going to basically set it up with slashes to denote from big area over here down to small area over there. So you might have a prod environment, a dev environment, a QA environment. So that might be your first slash. And then underneath each of those prod, dev, and QA, you've got database servers, web servers, authentication servers. So the second one may be Active Directory or authentication. It may be database servers. It may be web servers. And then the third slash might be your specific web servers, IIS, Apache, whatever. So you can configure this. And the real cool thing about this is when I search in my logs, I can say underscore source category equals something as specific as labs / Apache / access, or something as general as underscore source category equals star, which is a wildcard, which means I want all of my environments / Apache / star, which means I want all of my Apache logs for all of my environments. So this supports wildcards. And we really recommend you take advantage and use source category. You're going to see today and tomorrow, we're going to use source category almost exclusively as far as searching for things. Okay. With that in mind, I'd like us to go ahead and log into the Sumo Logic training environment. Now, in order to do that, I'd like you to bring up either your Google Chrome or your Firefox browsers. And I want you to go to service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. You're going to log in as training plus labs at sumologic.com. Training plus labs. In a minute, I'll put this in the chat box so you guys all have it. And then the password is a capital L, 0, GIC, capital J, UNE, 20, exclamation mark. So I'm going to go and stop the slide here for a second, stop the presentation. I'm going to take this information and I'm going to copy it into the chat box so you guys can take it right out of the chat box. Okay. Additionally, while I'm on this conversation piece, let me also share with you my contact information. So in case you've got questions 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, and you're not sure to ask, you can ask me. Okay. So anything I can do to help you, please let me know. Keep in mind that I'm on the East Coast of the US, so there may be a time lag if you ask me a question, but I will certainly get back to you. Actually, let me just check one thing real quick. I think I sent it to everybody. I did, good. So you can copy and paste that information if it's easier for you to do. Now, one thing, our password here changes every 30 days. So this password to our training environment does change every 30 days. So if you want to know what the latest password is, when we get into July or August, either you can guess or you can send me an email and I'll gladly provide it. You can use our training environment and play around. There's one thing I do ask, and that is if you take the administration class and you learn how to create collectors and sources, please do not take any of your private data, your confidential data, and bring it into our training environment. Because after all, our training environment is open to the public, right? So you don't want to share that information out. And by the way, somebody's going to ask logically the question, can I restrict by user or by role or something, what data they can see? And the answer to that question is yes, you can do it by role. So you can specify a role and that role can be restricted to seeing certain data. And so yes, in our product, you can very easily do that, okay? And we teach stuff like that in the admin class. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to log into the Sumo Logic environment. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and log into the Sumo Logic training environment myself. And so just bear with me a second here while I go in there. And let's talk a little bit about the Sumo Logic training environment. Okay. First of all, I've got a bunch of tabs open up here. I've got tabs open on mine. You may or may not have tabs open here, but I'm going to get rid of them all. So any one of these tabs, there's a more action button, these 3 dots. And I can click on these 3 dots, any one of these 3 dots, and I can close this particular tab. I can close all the other tabs and leave this tab open, or I can flat out close all tabs. And I'm going to choose to close all tabs. By the way, let me also do this. Bear with me a second. Let me do a quick poll and make sure you guys are all able to get into the system. So let me make sure you guys are able to log in to the training environment. So I've got a I got a poll open that says, are you able to log into the training environment? So if you would respond, I would appreciate it. And I say I've got one request to repeat the instructions, and I will in just a second. Okay. So. Again, if you're having problems logging in, specific problems logging in, feel free to let us know in the chat box. That way Suresh can probably help you out. But I will repeat the instructions here in just a second. In fact, let me go ahead and hold this. Let me end the poll real quick. Let me share the results. Anytime I do a poll, I'll share the results with you, so you see what I see. And 6 of you would like me to repeat the instructions, so I'll do that. So what we want you to do is we want you to bring up either Google Chrome or Firefox. You know, IE has been deprecated. The old versions of IE have been deprecated, things like that. So you find that Google Chrome and Firefox work the best. And then what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to go to service.sumologic.com. Okay. Now I happen to be logged in, so let me log out. So let me sign out so you see what I see. So here you're going to log in as Training Plus Labs at sumologic.com. Training Plus Labs at sumologic.com. And then the password is capital L 0 GIC capital JUNE 20 exclamation mark. So you're all going to log in with the same account, and I'll get into the specifics of that a little bit later. But you're going to log in. Now I'm logged in with my account, and the reason is I have elevated privileges. I can show you some things. And I also suspect some of you are going to ask some questions that are probably going to need me to demonstrate something with some elevated privileges. So that's that. But when you log in, you should see something that looks like this. Okay. So hopefully now we're all able to log in. We're all able to get in here. So if you're not able to log in, if it's having problems, please put something in the chat box to let us know. Feel free to put something in the chat box to let us know. By the way, for planning purposes, I'll plan on taking a break in about 37 minutes. So in case you're wondering if we're going to get a break and when. So hopefully we're all logged in. We're ready to go. Let me go and run that poll again real quick, if you don't mind. Going to relaunch the poll here. Let me know that you guys are all in and we're all in good shape, please. By the way, if I get going and talking too fast, please don't hesitate to slow me down. Put it in the chat box or whatever. Please let me know. And I'll gladly slow down. So just trying to make sure we get the material all covered and get your time for your exam. All right. Looking good. So 73% say you're in, 74 say you're in. Sorry, now it's up to 75. 2 of you say you copied the directions. Looks like we are all in and life is good. So let me go ahead and again, close the poll, share the results, stop sharing. Looks like we are all in and looking good. So let me just check out the Q&A question here. I am in. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Good. All right. So as I said before, when you go in here, if there's a bunch of tabs up here, a bunch of tabs open, I'm just going to open up a tab here just to see here. If you get tabs open here, you can click on any one of these tabs, click on the kebab, the 3 dots here, and you can close all the tabs up. So you can close those tabs up. Additionally, over here, your navigation pane, that's what we call it, the navigation pane may be opened or it might be closed. If it's closed, you'll see the word Sumo Logic and you'll see this hamburger menu. Hamburger menu or a stack of pancakes. Don't ask me why things relate to food for me. It's probably not a healthy conversation. But if you want to open up the navigation pane, and that's where I'm going to start, so let's open up the navigation pane. And this is my navigation pane, and it depends on what I'm looking at when I click up here as far as what I see in my navigation pane. So I'm going to start over here on the right. This is my library. This is my common area where you and I and others, or your administrator, can set up and we can see information that we need to see, okay? So the administrator may set up a bunch of folders in here and structure it up. And then we can see that common area. Next to it, I have a personal area. This is where I can save, you can save things and put it in your personal area. Even if it's in your personal area, you can still share it with others. So you can allow others to access and see things in your personal area if you want. But this is your personal area. Now, all of you are logged in with the same account. Ergo, you all have the same personal area. So when we save things, we're going to deviate from the directions a little bit, and we're going to append your initials and a unique number to make sure things are unique when you save things. You'll notice here I've got an Apache JWM 0610, Apache JWM 0616. I teach this class fairly regularly, and so today I'll add another one, Apache JWM 06 with today's date. But the point is when you guys save things, because you all have the same personal folder, we'll want to make sure everything's uniquely saved with a unique name. Okay. This area over here is my favorites area. How do I add things to favorites? It's really quite simple. I go over here, and if there's something I want to add to the favorite, over here where the star is, I click on the star to fill it in. That star is filled in, is now part of my favorites. It's very easy to add things to your favorites. You don't want it in your favorites anymore? Click on the star again, hollow it out, and it's removed from your favorites. So that's how you add something to your favorites. This area over here is your recents, recently opened by me. I can see what I've recently opened, what I've recently played with. Additionally, where it says recently opened by me, if I click on it, I can also say recently shared with me. So if somebody shares something with you, I can see what was recently shared with me. And I can do it that way. Okay. One other little thing here in the library, if I go back to my library, if I click on these ellipses, the more action button here, I can browse by file structure, which is typically what you want to do, or you can switch and browse by creator. So you can actually look and see your users and stuff in your account, who created stuff, and browse by who created various things. I tend to like the content, a shared content view or the folder view. I tend to like it that way. So that's typically what I see. All right. Down here is my main menu. So down here is my main menu. I have my app catalog. This app catalog consists of over 200 applications that you can install, that I can install and immediately get some value from. These applications were pre-built to get you anywhere from 60 to 90% of the way done with whatever the heck you need. So we've got apps for AWS and various AWS things, Azure, various Azure things. We've got some specific Sumo Logic stuff, apps that we've created. Here's a nice little area we just recently created, the work from home solution. One of the core values of Sumo Logic is we are in it with our customers. We feel your pain. We are all working from home. As such, we set up this work from home solution. So if you want to, we have an app here for Zoom. We have an app here for Slack. We have an app for Salesforce, for Office 365. And these have some dashboards and some queries that show you how your folks are using Office 365 or how folks are using Slack and things along those lines. So we'll get into these apps later. We'll actually install an app in just a few minutes. Underneath here is my managed data, and here in my managed data, here's under managed data under collection, I can see my collectors, and I can see my collectors and my sources. So this is one of the ways we're going to see where your data is, and you'll see in lab 1, we're going to come back and revisit this. One little thing of note, those of you who've been paying attention to Sumo Logic, this area of logs and metrics used to be combined. It used to be called settings. We've now split it out to logs and metrics. So just want you to be aware of that. And then, of course, I've got an administration area here where I can deal with. And then, of course, I got help. And I want you to click on help. So in the main menu, go ahead and click on help. And here is my documentation. Now, when you click on documentation under help, it is context sensitive. So right now, I'm looking at my collectors. When I click on documentation, it automatically gives me help and documentation on my collection, right? It is context sensitive. If I was in, say, my app catalog and I went to help and documentation, it would give me documentation on my apps. Now, regardless of what you do here in documentation, and we work very hard to keep our documentation up and fresh, I do want to point out a couple things in the documentation. So in the table of contents over here on the left, if you click on Start Here, under Start Here, you'll see, about Sumo Logic, getting started, all that good stuff. There's an area here called Quick Start Labs and Tutorials. And if you click on Quick Start Labs and Tutorials, you will see here are all of the labs we have for all of our classes, for all of our certification exams. So if you're curious about security analytics and you want to see what kind of labs we do, great. You can go in there and see the various labs. And since you now have access to the training environment, you can do those labs on your own time if you want. Okay? We're all about helping you and empowering you. And that's our goal here. So these are our labs. We are going to come back here in a few minutes and come back to hands-on labs fundamentals. And these are the 7 labs that we are going to do today. And for those of you who want to get ahead for tomorrow, here's the labs for tomorrow's Search Mastery. There are 15 labs. Okay? You can also tour the UI and all that stuff. The other area of this table of contents I want to show you is under the search. So in the table of contents here, if you click search, on the left side, search, underneath that, you'll see a section called Search Cheat Sheets. And if you click on the Search Cheat Sheets, you'll see we've got cheat sheets for IIS and for grep and stuff like that. But there's this one called Log Operatives Cheat Sheets. And if you click on the Log Operatives Cheat Sheets, you will see here are all the operators that we tend to use when we are creating queries. So wouldn't it be nice if I could get a hold of all of those operators and I could print them out some way and all that? Well, they're all right here. They're all well documented and all that sort of thing. But if you go to the top back up here in the end of the first paragraph, you'll see it says PDF version. And if you click on the word PDF version, there you go. You got a PDF version of this that you can print out and you can put next to your computer. And it has all of our commands, whether they're a search operator, an aggregation operator, a parsing operator. They are all there for you to use and for you to print. Okay. All right. And of course, if you want to look at metrics or you want to look at anything in here, there's all kinds of fun stuff for you to see. If there's a specific function you're interested in, like outlier, or probably one of the more favorites that people do is they like to do geolocation. And so you can do a search here for anything you're looking for. And for example, here's the information about geolocation. So again, how do I look things up on a map and display things in a map box plot? Here you go. So our documentation is very good. It's very rich. I would recommend you take advantage of it. Okay. By the way, if I did mention it, I'll mention it again. And that is when you get around to doing the exam, it is open documentation. Okay. Now back here to help, back in my Sumo Logic environment here, back here to help, I also want to show you community. So under help, I want you to click on community. And here in my community, you can look for various things. So if you want to see, for example, under the ideas area, you can see what enhancements that people have requested, and you can even vote on them. So you can see what product enhancements people have asked for in the roadmap. You can put in your own ideas, your own suggestions. As I said, you can vote, things along those lines. If I go back to the root of community though, and if you search for the word slides, S-L-I-D-E-S, that's S-L-I-D-E-S, you search for the word slides, you'll see that we'll get a response. And if you click on that response, here is a copy of a recording of each one of our classes. So here is a fundamentals certification recording. And here are our slides for this class. So again, our exams are open note, open book, open slide. And here you can download the slides if you want to, or you can just scan through them looking for the information that you need. And again, not only do you see the class that you're taking, but you can see all of our classes. So if you have an interest, like I said, in security analytics or Kubernetes, there you go. Obviously, I recommend you probably want to sign up for our regular class, our regular Kubernetes class, but if you can't wait, by all means, you can listen to it. You can look at the slides. And as I showed you earlier, you can get to the exercises. So that's just something I wanted to share with you. Any questions so far? Let me see what we got in the Q&A. Okay. Can I paste the link? Sure. Download the session slides. Sure. I can do that. Let's go to chat. There's the slides and the recordings. Okay. All right, so back here to Sumo Logic, and this pretty much takes care of our navigation pane and our main menu. So I'm going to close that up and give myself more screen space. Over here on the Home tab, so you've got this little Home tab up here. This Home tab is broken up into 3 pages. My home page, where I can create a new log search, a new metric query, new live tail, and we'll talk about what live tail and metric queries and stuff are in a bit, and as well as do my setup wizard. Here I can see my recently opened dashboards, my recently run searches. I can see any recommended dashboards by my administrator. So my administrator can recommend certain dashboards for me. And we'll talk about what a pin search is in just a little bit. Under my Learn tab is created by my colleagues in the education area and the education team. So some of my colleagues, in fact, actually out of your office, I'm going to introduce them, I think tomorrow. I don't think they're here today, but I'll introduce them tomorrow. 2 of my colleagues create a lot of these micro learnings. These are designed to be short, quick learnings about various topics. So how do I create a collector? There's a micro learning for that. How do I manage my ingest budgets? There's a micro learning for that. So we're providing a bunch of micro learning to try to help you out. And then, of course, here's my hands-on fundamentals, my hands-on administration labs, in case you're curious, 2 of our more popular courses. Here's that link to that cheat sheet that takes me back to that cheat sheet. Here's a link to my documentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see we've got a whole area here trying to help you out. Last but not least is the certification page. And I would like everyone to click on the Home tab, the certification page, because there's one thing I want us all to do together. So here I've got, again, my 6 certifications. And the first link that's listed here is a recording. The second link is my labs. First link recording, second link labs. What I want to do is I want you all to click on, in the fundamentals area, under the word tutorial, and that should then open up a new tab that will show you your labs. And these are the labs that we're going to go through. So I want to make sure that you can open and see those labs, because that's the next thing that we are going to do and we are going to focus on, conducting these labs. Any questions so far? Take a peek at Q&A. Interesting. Somebody's getting a repeated message when logging in. Whoops, something's wrong. Please refresh the page. I would ask what browser you're using, just to see what the browser is, and maybe clear your cache or something, but you shouldn't be getting that message. It's not a feature. So, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay. Probably both Firefox and Chrome and getting it, huh? Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Keep in mind that you can, if you've got a Sumo Logic training environment yourself, your company has a Sumo Logic training environment, you should have the same 3 tabs. And so you can also go into your company's Sumo Logic environment and see the labs. Now, the problem with your company's Sumo Logic environment is that you don't have the data that we have. That's why you need to be in the training environment to do the exercises. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started here with lab number 1, viewing our data. So lab number 1, they want you to log in. We've all done that. We're good to go. We signed in. We can see things. We want to see what data is available. And again, I assume that when you finish this training, one of the first things you're going to want to do is see what data your company has available. How do we do that? Well, we go in here to Sumo Logic. We go in here to our navigation pane. Here in our navigation pane in our main menu, we click on Manage Data. And under Manage Data, we click on Collection, just like it says here. manage data, collection, and then we can see all of our collectors. These things with triangles are my collectors. And then underneath my collectors, I have my various sources. So these are the sources that I use, and here are the source categories. And this is the data then that I can see and can access and all that good stuff. If you don't have permissions to something, you won't be able to see it. So this is an easy way to see what can I play with. Also, by the way, if you want to search for things, you can search for things. So for example, let's say you're on Azure. I can do a search for Azure and it shows me everything that has the word Azure in it. And so I can see all my Azure collectors. Or in my case, I happen to have a host collector on my system. I can search for my own system. And I disinstalled or removed that host collector. So that's why these are there. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete that collector because I'm going to reinstall it again later this next week when I teach the admin class. So keep fixing things and then breaking them for the next class. So bottom line is you can see your collectors, okay? And if I want to here, I can remove everything. And again, I'm seeing all my collectors. There's another way that you can see your collectors, by the way. As we scroll down here, it says, hey, we can open up a log search. So they want us to go to our home page and click this blue new button and click log search. And then we can see the interface here. And they want us to go ahead and copy. You can copy this code in. So you can copy this stuff in if you want. And so what they want us to do here is they want us to go up here where my top of my panel is, where this new blue bar button is. They want me to select log search. And here's my searching interface. Let me go ahead and close up my navigation pane to save some room. And then I can paste this stuff in. Now, as I said, you can paste these in if you want, and I'm going to run it. Now, by default, when I run a query, by default, it's set for 15 minutes. Something you're probably going to want to know for today or tomorrow, the exam. Additionally, this star means I want to see everything. So for the last 15 minutes, I want to see all my log entries, and there's over 500,000 log entries, 509,393, according to my system. So I want to see all my log entries. And sure enough, if I go into messages, here are all of my log entries, everything that you could want. There are 20,376 pages. On each page, there is 25 entries. So, but then I do another command. My commands are separated by a pipe, a vertical line, a pipe. And I say I want to count by subcategory. When I do a count or a sum or something like that, it's going to create for me an aggregates tab. And here I will see out of this 500,000 messages, how many of are from this source, how many from this source, how many from this source, and so forth and so on. So again, we wanted to give you a command that you could use immediately on your own environment. And you could run this on your own environment and see how things are. I'm going to add something to this command. I'm going to add a pipe, and I'm going to type in the word order by, and then I'm going to say order by underscore count. Now, order by is a sort. So I could use the command sort. I could use the command order by. They both do the same thing. And when I did underscore count, people get confused on that. Count here is an operator. Count is going to count something. Think of a teacher in a classroom counting students. 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. The result of that count is stored in underscore count. Here is the results, underscore count. So I want to order by underscore count. And if I don't specify an order, it automatically does it in descending order. These two statements are equivalent. I could leave the descending off. If I wanted an ascending order, I've got to specify ASC for ascending order. Okay. So basically here I can see where all my messages are coming from my various sources. Now, one thing about this, I can continue to add pipes and add commands and add pipes and commands and have this line go all the way out here. The problem is that's not very readable for us humans. The machine likes it just fine. The computer likes it, but we humans don't. So we recommend that you put in between your pipes here a carriage return line feed. And if you've been hitting the return key wondering why won't it word wrap for me, it's because in order to word wrap or add a new line, you either do a shift enter or you do an alt enter. Shift enter or alt enter is how you add new lines. Okay? So it's just a little something to get used to. If you hit the enter key, it's the same as clicking the start button. It's going to run your query. And that just takes a little getting used to. Now in my interface here, you'll see here's my query. I've got some options down here I'll go into in just a minute. Here's my histogram, and my histogram shows me it's done gathering results. How long did it take? The number of results, that sort of thing. And then I typically see in my messages all of my messages. And I see my field browser here. Now, in this case, I see a bunch of fields in my field browser. Those fields came from something called a field extraction rule. When your administrator sets up Sumo Logic, or whoever sets up your collectors, they can create a field extraction rule. And the field extraction rules are under manage data, under logs now. It used to be under settings, it's under logs. And here is where your field extraction rules are. So when I bring in a specific set of data like Apache logs or IIS logs or whatever, I can immediately extract out the fields that I want to use for my query. Therefore, if my user wants to see a specific field and or extract a specific field, they can click on a field and have it suddenly pop up. Now I've got a bunch of different logs in here, so this is going to get really, really kind of messy, okay? So I'm going to grab some ones I know across all my logs. So I can add what I want to see here, remove what I don't want to see here, and life is good. But these field extraction rules, most of these field extraction rules came from, or I'm sorry, most of these fields came from field extraction rules, and these are in my field browser. Okay, and we teach you how to build field extraction rules in the admin class. So that's where those fields came from. We're going to assume in this class you don't have any field extraction rules, so we're going to show you how to parse out things from your logs. So we'll do that in the next lab coming up. Okay, let me get back here to lab number 1. So in lab number 1, they wanted me to do this count by source category. Here's my information. I actually organized it a little bit, did an order by, that sort of thing. Next thing they want us to do is they want us to find and display a shared dashboard, right? Find and display a shared dashboard. So I'm going to go back here. And what they want us to do in the directions is they want us to go to the library. So if you didn't open this up, open up your navigation pane, go to your library, and right below it where this magnifying glass is, they want us to search for Apache Access. Apache Access. You'll notice I have 2 Apache Access folders. You want to grab the second folder, the second Apache Access folder. And underneath there, you'll see a folder called Apache. And let's just go ahead and open it up. Open up that Apache folder. Now, this is an Apache app that we install, that we're going to install in just a little bit. But here, what we want to do is we want to be able to run a dashboard. Now, these greenish icons here are dashboards. These reddish orangish things are queries. So when I click on Apache Overview, and I want you to click on Apache Overview, you'll see that it runs this dashboard. And this dashboard has 6 panels. Each one of these panels is a query. So we're going to talk about this. Now, this particular dashboard, I'm going to change this to say last 16 minutes, change this to last 16 minutes. And so I'm able to see data here. Point is, you can, I can, we can run a dashboard. So once it is built or once it's installed or whatever, you can simply run it and see the information it's trying to tell me. So here I am seeing my visitors across the world here. And I can, if I want to, zoom in on these maps and things get started breaking out. And I can see maybe where my users are coming from, that sort of thing. I can also pinch and zoom in, zoom out, that sort of stuff. So I can see where my web server, where my visitors are coming from my logs, right? So you want to run this dashboard. That's what Lab 1 is all about. Lab 1, we're going to run the dashboard. Notice, by the way, on this exercise, this has a white background. Ours had a dark background. A little later on, I'll show you about how to fix that. Try to change that if you want. Next thing they want us to do is they want us to install an app, and they want us to view the app, view the content. Now, when we install this app, we are going to use this app later in an exercise. So it is important that we do this and do this right. And we're going to need to deviate a little bit from the directions. So if we want to install an app, we're going to go to our app catalog. So let's go to our app catalog in our main menu. And let's go to all categories. Make sure we selected all categories. And let's do a search for Apache. Okay. Now, I suppose I don't have to tell any of you, but Apache, the one with the feather, is just an Apache web server, right? It's just a plain old displays HTML type stuff. Basically, it's Apache being an open source web server. Apache Tomcat is also a web server, but it supports Java and JavaScript and all that fun stuff. We want to install the Apache Feather application. So when you click on, and I do want you to click on the Apache with the feather box there, you'll see it shows me what my dashboards are, what my queries are that I'm going to install. I can also, if I want to, click on Preview Dashboard, and I can start seeing what the dashboards start to look like, just to get a sense for the kind of information that I'm getting. Okay. So we like this dashboard. We want to install it, right? This will get us maybe 70% to 90% of what we want to do with our Apache information. So hopefully it's going to save us a lot of time. So we want to click Add to Library. I want you to click Add to Library. I'm going to click Add to Library. And here is where we're going to deviate a little bit from the directions. So in the directions, they say you need to name it, and you need to name it Apache. Well, we all are saving it to the same folder, which means that we all need to have a different name. So when we save it, here's where I want to deviate from the directions. I want to call it Apache, but I'd like you to append your initials, and I'd like you to append a unique number. Now, my unique number, I'm going to use today's date, 06/18. You can use today's date, but I'd probably prefer you use like your month and day of your birthday or something like that. That way I know it's probably truly unique. If we all used today's date, and some of you have the same initials, we're going to have a little problem, okay? So I just want to make sure that wherever saving things, it's very unique, all right? Any questions or problems with that? Okay. All right. The next thing we need to do is we need to tie it to our data that's coming in. So here we're going to specify what the source category is for my logs, and the source category is for my error logs. And if you look at the directions, you'll see that the log source is right here, and the error log source is right here. Now, I can copy this if I want to. I can right-click, copy, and I can paste it in, which I'll do for this one. Or I can also start typing. And as I start typing, the IntelliSense starts to kick in, or the look ahead forwarding starts to kick in, whatever you'd like to call it. And then I can select the field that I want. So you do want to make sure that this one is set for Labs Apache Access. This one is Labs Apache Error. If I click on Advanced, you'll see that we're going to install this in our personal folder. And that's exactly where I want you to install it, your personal folder. So when we're all happy, we got this all filled out, let's go ahead and click Add to Library. And presto changeo, this will now add to our library, and we can then use this application ourselves. Now, when we add this to library, we're going to do two things. We're going to share it with some of our colleagues. We're also going to test it and make sure it works. So I'm just waiting for it to add to library. Keep in mind that we're all adding to library, so I'm sure the system's a little busy right now. There we go. So now if I go in here in my personal folder, now I see Apache JWM 0618. By the way, I'm going to mark it as a favorite just to make it easy for me to find in my favorites. And then I want to test it, right? I want to make sure things work. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to click on this Apache overview just to make sure it works. Make sure I'm seeing my data. These green lines indicate the query is running. When the green lines are done, the query is done. So that query is done. This query is done. Looks like we're ready to roll. Good news is I'm getting data. This is all looking good. I'm very, very happy. Now, per the directions in your book, after you've installed it and after you've added it to your library, they want you to click on the share. They want you to share it. So I'm going to go back into my folder up here where it says Apache JWM0618. I'm going to find my More Action button here. Also, people refer to this as the kebab, but I'm going to click on that, and then there's an option here to share. There's also an option to export this and import if you wanted to. You could export this out and import it into your environment. The only difference is you'd probably have to change the source category if you're running Apache, by the way. But I'm going to do a share, so I'm going to click on share. And then who do I want to share it with? Do I want to share it with my entire organization? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Do I want to share it with a specific role, maybe my training analyst role? Or do I want to share it with a specific named user? My boss, Josh Broheim. Maybe I want to share it with all three of those folks. Now, in here, what permissions do I want them all to have at the same time? View means they can view this, they can run it, they can execute it. Edit means they can view it and additionally make changes to it. They can edit it, modify it. Manage means they can view it and edit it, as well as they can change the permissions as far as who can see this. So as you might imagine, right now I'm going to set all three of these up to view this. Then I'm going to go in and change this. Okay, I'm going to go and change the permissions. I can notify everybody of email, but if I do that, I'm going to create a bit of a email storm. So I don't really want to send everybody at Sumo Logic that, I've given you rights to a dashboard, but you can. And I'm going to go ahead and hit share. So I'm going to share this. And then I'm going to go back in again, and I'm going to go to share. And now I can see who has access. And now I can change the permissions. So I can give my boss the ability to manage this. I can give the training analyst the ability to edit this, and so forth and so on. If I want to, I can delete somebody's permission. So that is how you set up sharing for a dashboard or for an application. Now that set up my entire application. That took care of each and every one of these dashboards, right? Each and every one of these dashboards. I can see who has access to it, that sort of thing. If I want to change a specific dashboard or a specific query, I could go to that specific dashboard and query. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've set those permissions up and we are in good shape. Any questions about lab number 1? We are right on schedule, folks. So what do you say we take a break? Let us take a break, and we will, let me just check the chat. There's some stuff in the chat, okay? Sure, hang on a second, Shiraz. Sorry about that. There you go, Suresh. All right. So done with that, So let's take a break. And like I said, let's take about a 15-minute break. So what I'd like to do here is grab a new spot here to open things up on my browser. There we go. And let me go to my training class and let me grab my 15-minute timer. And let's take a 15-minute break. When this gets down to 0, let's get back here and get ready to go. But for right now, I'll see you back in about 14 minutes and 50 seconds. Take a break. I'm going to step away for a break for myself here in a little bit. So I'm also going to pause the recording. Let's go back to work. Before I get started, there's a couple of questions here that I see appeared in the Q&A box, so I wanted to answer them. First question is, or the easier of the 2 questions to answer real quick, is there, what's the difference between the Apache log? When we installed that app, we had to install a setting source category for Apache log and then Apache error log. We know, because we know Apache and the Apache system, we know that this actually generates two logs. The Apache log, which is my access log, which is where I see who's been trying to access and what's going on. It also generates an error log. Anytime we throw an error, we log that. So because we know, in this case, Apache and that structure, we built a dashboard that uses both those log sources. And so you had to define both those log sources. So typically when you install one of our apps or install an app, it may ask you for 1, 2, 3 different source categories to supply all the data we need to render out all those dashboards. So hopefully that answers the question. But again, Apache has two logs. Access log shows me who's trying to access, what they're trying to do. And then an error log that throws any error that gets thrown, it gets thrown into that error log. So, and you'll actually see that a lot tomorrow in tomorrow's class, because we're going to play a lot with the Apache logs. The second question was, there was an issue with somebody trying to download or access the cheat sheet PDF. And so what I'm going to try to do here real quick is I can, I can't. I've got the PDF. If you can send me your email address, I will gladly send it to you. So here is the PDF. I've downloaded the PDF. And if you want, like I said, just send me your email address and I will gladly email it to you. Okay? So that was the second question. So let me just do a quick poll here, make sure we're all ready to go. We've all had our break. We are all ready to continue. And so let me just launch a poll real quick, make sure we're all good to go. So if you would respond to that poll, I would appreciate it. So I've got about 40, almost 50 responses. There we go, 52 responses. So I've got 60 responses. Okay, looks like we're all about ready to go. Excellent. Let me go ahead and end the poll. Again, I'll share the results with you just so you see what I see. So in good shape. So let's start with lab 2 and let's talk a little bit more about searching our log data. Okay. So again, we're in here, we're looking at the labs. We're going to go to lab 2 now. By the way, you'll find the first couple labs start off slow, but after that, it moves pretty quick. So in here, they want us to create a new log search, and they want us to go ahead and search for things. I'm going to go ahead and type this in. I'm not going to copy it. You can, it's up to you, but basically we want to go through the interface here a little bit. So I'm going to go up here. By the way, I notice I've got a few tabs open. Things are starting to get a little busy on my system here. So I can close, I'm going to close up all these tabs just for good housekeeping. So I'm going to close up all the tabs. And again, in lab 2, I'm going to click the new button. I want a new log search. And I want to start looking for things, okay? So I'm going to start underscore source. And now you notice as I start typing in, the type ahead tells me, okay, you got source category, source host. Which one of these do you want? And then I'm going to go labs/Apache. And again, I've got my IntelliSense here trying to help me out. So here I'm looking at labs/Apache/access. And I'm not going to add the word and get just yet. Give me a second. So when I run this, again, by default, it's looking at the last 15 minutes. And I've got 55,919 results. Okay. So I'm looking at the Apache access logs over the last 15 minutes. Now, first thing I can do is I can change this. So let's talk about what I can change here and how I can change it. So I can change this to 60 minutes, 3 hours, whatever. Whatever time frame you want is probably not going to be listed on this pick list. It isn't. So how do I break the code and figure out what I need to type to make something happen? Well, if you look at the minus 60 minutes here that I put in there, it's got a minus 60M. Okay, well, I think I can pretty much figure that out then. So if I want it 45 minutes ago, it's minus 45M. That shows me the last 45 minutes. Great. If I want to go back 45 hours, it's minus 45H for hours. I want to go back 45 days, it's minus 45D if I want. So pretty simple stuff. As you can see, the more time I ask for, the longer it might take. I can also, if I want to, say I want to go back maybe minus 3D for 3 days. So it's pretty simple to break that code. Additionally, in here under custom, you can also pick the date ranges and the time ranges that you want. So you can put the time ranges, date ranges you want. By the way, you can also type in the dates. So for example, if I wanted 06/01. By the way, it picks up the time and date format from my local settings, maybe from to 06/10. I didn't specify the year. And because I didn't specify the year, it assumes current year. So if I wanted 2019, I have to specify 2019 because we're now into 2020. So as you can see here, I can specify a date range, date and time range if I want, all that good stuff. So if I want to go from here to here and you know, pick up different times, I can do that. Okay. So picking up times is fairly easy. And then under recent, it keeps track of what I've been asking for. So I can make that fairly easy. So I can pick the time that I want. Now this receipt time. Well, first of all, when I don't use receipt time, it picks up my time from my logs, the timestamp that's in my logs. So let me go back here to minus 15 minutes. Okay. By default, it picks up my time from my logs, and that's what it does. If I say and check use receipt time, now what it's going to do is it's going to take the last 15 minutes from the time that Sumo Logic received that message. So here I see my timestamp in my log. Here's the time I see that we received it. And so this is going to go back 15 minutes from when we received things. And so I can see that I've got 57,790 messages. So receipt time is when we receive it. Okay. Now let me go back and run this again, just so I get a baseline number here. 55,638. Now, again, this is a running 15 minutes. So when I hit it, it goes back from that point to that split second, back 15 minutes. If I add the word and get, this is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it's going to go for my Apache access logs to be sure, but it's only going to show me the messages that have the word get in it, okay? Or if I want, I can type in and 200, and now it's going to only show me the messages that have the value of 200 in it. Now that 200 could be an octet of an IP address, it could be a status code, it could be whatever. But it's looking for anything that has the word 200, and anything that doesn't have 200 in it, it filters out automatically. So this first line is my scoping line, and it's a very important line because the more precise I can be on my scoping line, the smaller the amount of data that comes back. And then I can additionally count it, aggregate it, filter it, and all that fun stuff. So think of this as kind of a big funnel, right? In fact, let me go back to my slides here for a second, and let's talk a little bit about this structure. So here I have a typical query, right? Here's my scoping line that says I want to find everything in my access logs, my Apache access logs, specifically that have the word Mozilla in it, okay? Then I want to do a parse anchor, and we'll talk about this in a second, where I parse out some fields. Then I want to filter where a status code is equal to a certain value. I could have put the filter up here with my Mozilla as well. And then I count and sort and all that stuff. So if you think of this, it kind of looks like a filter, right? My scoping line is this first line. And then as I go through the query, it kind of filters things and narrows things down, narrows my results. But that scoping line determines the diameter of this top of your filter. The smaller the diameter, the quicker things are going to run. So I do recommend in that first line that you do take advantage of those metadata and keywords. The other thing I want you to note is that my metadata and keywords are case insensitive. Notice I typed in a lowercase get. It found an uppercase get. It doesn't matter if I typed in get, this get, I'm sorry, that get, doesn't make any difference. It would still work. It's case insensitive, okay? This first scoping line is case insensitive. And it finds and highlights any words that have the word get on it, okay? The other thing you'll notice is I don't need the word and. I have a space between two things up here in my scoping line, and is assumed, and is implied. So I get the same results whether I have the word and or not. If I want to have an or in there, so I want to see stuff from my access, Apache access logs, or any message that has the word get in it, I could use the or command. So this is going to be this specific log, and this is going to be any log that has the word get in it. So you want to be careful about using ands and ors. If you do want to use an or must be explicitly typed in. Okay. Notice, by the way, how many records and results I got back, 124,000. If I make this an and or just leave it out, I am down to 60,000. Okay. So that's the first thing we want you to understand is the get and stuff. And then they go through the time periods and the time frames, which I did. And again, we can see the results here. Notice that the word here, get, is highlighted, and it is. But let's talk a little bit more about that highlight. Let's talk about some of these options. So if I create a query and I want to save it, right? I click Save As, and I save it and give it a name and all that good stuff. If I want to mark it as a favorite, I can do that, but I got to save it first. Hopefully that makes sense. Information will show me information about this. Okay. Sharing it. If I want to share this, this query, I can either do it externally or internally. If I want to do it externally, there's the complete URL for that query. And I could open up another browser. I'll open up Safari on my system. I'm on a Mac in case you hadn't figured that out. And I could run this. Now the problem is, because we've got authentication stood up, it wants me to log in. So I'll go ahead and log in. And then I'll be able to see the results of that query. So here's my query. Here's the time frame of that query. We are all in good shape, okay? So I can share that. Now, we have a capability in our product that you can actually take some IP addresses and some IP address ranges, some CIDRs, and you can actually put them on a whitelist and designate that you want to share certain URLs outside of your organization, and they don't have to authenticate. So for testing purposes, it is possible that this URL could be shared with folks outside of your organization and they don't have to log in, okay? But you got to do some other things to make that happen. But for testing purposes, that is possible and it can be done. We talk about it more in the administration class, how you whitelist those IP addresses. Down here, if I want to share it with my teammates who are also in Sumo Logic, I can take this, it says _code, and there's some GUID number here. I can copy that. They could then open up their Sumo Logic environment. They could then take and click a new log search, and they could paste this in. Notice here it is, my code and my GUID number. And then when I hit start, it resolves that to my actual query and my actual time frame. Now you might ask, well, can't I just take this and copy it, paste it, send it in Slack or Teams or whatever? You could. The problem is some of those tools strip out the pipe and they strip out certain things. So this is why we recommend, if you want to share it internally, this is how you want to do it because nothing gets stripped. Okay. All right, pinning a query. Let's say I've got a long running query that takes a long time to run. Maybe it takes 5 minutes, maybe it takes 10, whatever. If I try to close my browser down while that query is running, that query is going to abnormally end. It's going to append, right? That's not something, that's not a good thing. But something may have happened. I mean, you may run this long query and then all of a sudden, you know, you're working from home because of coronavirus and fortunately, one of your kids falls down the steps or something and you want to immediately take care of them. So you want to close down your browser and that sort of thing. Understand completely, things happen. I hope nothing bad happens to your kids. But what you can do is you can pin it. And when you pin it, it transfers control from your browser. Now it's going to run in the background on the server. The server is now in control. You're no longer in control. You can close your browser, you can close your computer, you can do whatever the heck you want to. Life is good. It's still gonna run, and when it's done running, it'll tell you, it'll email you. And additionally, you can also go to your home button here on your home page, and you'll see your pin search there. Also, you'll see your pin search under your recents. So in your recently opened here, you'll also see your pin search there. Again, you might want to know that. You might see that later today. Okay. So that's pinning a search. It's transferring control to run on the server in the background, not through your browser. I can unpin this, and then when I unpin it, it says, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. Let's go, unpin it. Now I'm in control of when it runs and when it doesn't run. Okay. Next conversation here is LiveTail. I can run LiveTail, and this shows me as my logs are being ingested into Sumo Logic. Now, for many of you who are running LiveTail, you're probably getting a message saying only 10 people can concurrently run LiveTail on a system at a time. And if you're number 11 or higher, you're just out of luck. And that's because not too many people really need to run LiveTail. The people who probably want to run LiveTail and see data as it's being ingested in are your administrators and people who set up your collectors. One other thing you might notice is that my word get is not highlighted. The highlighting in LiveTail is done a little differently. In LiveTail, there's a highlight button, or we call it the A button. You click on the A button and you say, what do I want to highlight? I want to highlight the word get. I want to highlight the word maybe HTTP. I want to highlight the word 304. Okay. And so now I can see those things as it comes through here. All right. I see we got a question. Let me just take a quick gander here and see what our question is. Okay. Is LiveTail searching the real-time log? LiveTail is searching as we ingest into Sumo Logic. So it's taking it as it comes into Sumo Logic, which means that if in my query I tried to use any field extraction rule fields, it won't like that. It doesn't know what those field extraction rules are because it hasn't processed those rules. Okay. And that gets ahead of myself. That's something I'll talk about tomorrow, not today. But I just want you to be aware of it. Okay. So this shows me data as it's being ingested into Sumo Logic as it's coming into our cloud. All right. When I'm done with LiveTail, let me go and close up. So if any of you want to run LiveTail, you're certainly welcome to do that. But again, it's physically limited to 10 instances per environment. So that's LiveTail. Now, in our exercise here, again, I mentioned to you, we are not going to assume you've got any of these fields. None of these fields exist. So we want to show you how you can create those fields. Now, it depends on what kind of data you're looking at. This happens to be my Apache access logs. My Apache access logs are consistent text. And because they're consistent straight text, I can do an anchor parse or a regular expression parse or that sort of thing. If they were in JSON, I could do a parse JSON. If they were a CSV file, I could do a parse CSV, XML, XML, so forth and so on. But these are simple text files. And because we're going to assume you don't have any fields and you may want some fields that you want to do something with, we're going to show you how to parse. And I'm going to warn you on this lab, you're going to want to pay close attention with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a field. We're going to highlight what we want to parse through. And we're going to create a parse anchor. Now, it doesn't matter if I grab the first message, the second message, the third message, makes no difference. But what I want to do is I want to anchor on a symbol that I know is always going to be there. I could either anchor on the double quote, which is how they do it in the book, but I'm going to anchor actually on the left bracket or the right bracket here. So I'm going to swipe over the right bracket. I'm going to swipe over the word get. I'm going to swipe over this URL. I'm going to swipe over where it says HTTP 1/1. I'm going to swipe over these two sets of numbers. And then I'm going to swipe over this last URL here all the way to the end of the double quote before I get to the word Mozilla or whatever. So I do want the double quote in there. Make sure I get the double quote. There we go. And then I'm going to highlight all that. And when I'm done, I'm going to let go of my cursor here. I'm going to put my cursor anywhere over this highlighted area. And I'm going to right click. And I'm going to choose parse selected text. And I see a panel come up with my parse selected text. And I'm going to continue this in just a second. Now, for those of you who weren't able to follow along, I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to pick any line. I'm going to pick this bracket right here. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to highlight the word get, HTTP 1/1, these sets of numbers, and then this URL all the way to the end of the double quote. And I'm going to put my cursor on this highlighted line. I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose parse selected text. Okay. So now I've got my parse selected text and I want to extract out my fields. So the first one I want to extract out is my get. So I'm going to highlight the word get on this panel. And you'll notice it says, click to extract this data. I'm going to click to extract this data. And when I click to extract this data, it turns it into a star. Now that star, I'm going to put a corresponding field name down here. Those of you familiar with gets and things like that, those are actually methods, right? I've got a get, I've got a post, you know, these are methods of my web page. This next thing after my get is my URL. So in my case, I'm going to go /blog/index.php. I am not going to get into the HTTP 1/1. I'm going to extract this value. This value is called URL. Now, between my fields here, I've got commas. These are comma-separated values, comma-separated fields. I'm going to leave the HTTP 1/1 alone. I'm going to highlight over this number that says 200, this 3-digit number. I'm going to extract its value. That value represents my status code, so I'll type in status code. I could put anything in here I want to for the field names, but I'm trying to make the field names meaningful, so that represents the status code, that 3-digit number. I'm going to grab this next field, and that next field represents my size or my bytes. So I'm going to click to extract it, and I'm going to call it my size. And then finally, between my double quotes here, I have this URL, which is my referrer. And again, in a web server, when you click and you say you go to Google and search for something, like maybe you search for something in Sumo Logic, in my Sumo Logic logs, it will show me who referred me. So this URL is actually my referrer. So I'm going to grab the stuff between the double quotes, not including the double quotes. I'm going to extract this, and I'm going to call this my referrer. Now, I happen to have 5 stars up here. I happen to have 5 fields down there. It all matches. By the way, your fields cannot have spaces in them. So I've got to put an underscore. When I click submit, it's going to add this line in for me. This is my parse anchor. And when I run it, what you're going to see is that I have extracted out my method, my referrer, my size, my status code, and my URL. My message is still over here to the right. But now I've extracted out these fields, and I can manipulate these fields, and I can play with these fields and do some other things with these fields if I want to. But that is a parse anchor. And if your logs are heavily formatted or formatted in the same sort of structure, a consistent structure, you can use a parse anchor. And you might see something like that later this afternoon. Okay. By the way, the question always gets asked, what is the order of these fields? It's not the same order that I specified up there. These are listed down here alphabetically. If you want to change the order, you can use the fields command, F-I-E-L-D-S, fields command, and change the order that you might want. Okay. So we got a question. Let me take a quick peek at it. Okay. Is it automatically writing regex to extract those fields? In this case, it's not. In this case, it's actually looking for the structure and looking at these fields. So it's based on the structure, the position, if you will. But I can use a regex expression and parse using a parse regex command. So let me just answer your question real quick. I'm going to throw something else in my exercise. You guys don't need to do anything. If I do a search parse and I type in regex, which is regular expression, which is not a Sumo Logic creation, it's actually done by the World Wide Consortium. You'll see here I've got some code that I can copy and I can paste, okay? I don't know about you, but I'm a computer science major. First thing we learned is how to steal somebody else's code. So now I'm parsing these fields out, but I'm also parsing, and it's looking for 1 to 3 digits followed by a period, followed by 1 to 3 digits followed by a period, followed by 1 to 3 digits followed by, should be 4 of those. Okay, I think I got all 4 of them. So what it's doing is extracting out this field as my source IP. That's an example of a regular expression. And I can mix different types of parsing mechanisms in the same query. So I see we got lots of questions now. Okay. Following errors were reported when executing your attach. Do me a favor. Adjacent wildcards are not allowed. Yeah, you've got to have a space or something between your wildcards. That's why you're getting the error. Okay, yep. To ask us whether no space. Okay. So parse regex. And by the way, rather than me telling you about parse regex, which I'll gladly do, but let's take the another approach to this, and that is I can go out here and I can do a simple search. So I'm going to do a Google search, Sumo Logic, parse regex. And so I can see understanding parse regex, the parse field options. I can look at any one of these things, and I can parse regular expressions. So if you got a regular expression to do email addresses, IP addresses, whatever, you can parse using a regex. Okay. So, and if you're not sure about what regex is all about, there's a nice website, regex101.com, that you can look and see and test different regular expressions. By the way, the parse regex, again, I don't want to get too wrapped up into this. Parse regex, this is going to be my field name. This is the regular expression I'm looking for. Okay. All right, so let's get back to lab 2. That, by the way, is the hardest part of this whole exercise for today. So we've parsed our regular expression. The next thing it wants us to do is it wants us to save this. So when we save our query, what I want to do, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and comment out this parse regex. I don't need it. Comment out is 2 forward slashes. Just 2 forward slashes. I put a space in there too, but you could comment that out. And what we want to do is we want to do a save as. So I'm going to save this. And the big thing is they want to call this Apache status codes. But again, since we're all saving it to the same location, I want to make sure we all have a unique name. So please append your initials, and please append a unique number. And it's going to save it in your personal directory. So go ahead and save your query just in case there's a problem. And you'll notice that it's there. And that takes care of lab 2. We good so far? I'm going to assume so. Lab 3. In lab 3, what we want to do is we want to add a line after our parse statement, and we want to aggregate by status code. So back here, I want to add a new line. Remember, that's a shift enter or an alt enter. Type in a pipe, count by status code. Okay, I want to aggregate by this status code right here. So I want to see how many 200s I have, how many 304s I have, et cetera, et cetera. And when I run this for the last 15 minutes, here are my original messages. It hasn't changed. But because I'm doing some sort of an aggregation, a count by, a sum by, whatever, you'll see I now have an aggregates tab. And I see here is my status codes, and here is my counts. So I now have the ability under this aggregates tab to maybe create some horizontal bar charts or vertical column charts or line charts or something. But this really isn't the way I want it to look. So I want to do some additional manipulation here of some stuff, if you don't mind. So hopefully we're all good with the count by status code. As we continue on here, it wants us to add a time slice operator. A time slice operator. What a time slice operator does is it creates buckets. In this case, 1 minute worth of buckets. So I'm going to go in here and I can add my time slice operator anywhere I want to. After my parse statement, before my count statement though, because I'm going to then count by my time slices. So pipe, the command is time slice. Time slice, I'm missing a letter there. Spelling does matter here. Time slice, and you'll notice the reserve word shows up in pink or purple, whatever you're seeing there. 1M. So I'm creating 1 minute buckets. And since I'm going for 15 minutes, it's going to be 15 1 minute buckets. So now I've created my time slices. I haven't told it to display my time slices. I haven't told it to do anything with my time slices. I just created them. If I want to see them, then I can say count by, and again, I'm going to use the underscore time slice, which I'll explain in a minute, comma, status code. So now I'm seeing my time slices and my status codes. The reason I chose underscore time slices, just like with count, count is an operator. It does something, counts things. My time slice is an operator. My results of my time slice operator are stored in underscore time slice. Just like my results of the count are stored in underscore count. So that's why we refer to that underscore time slice. Now, one thing you might notice if you're keen of eyesight is these are not sorted in any way, shape, or form. So if I wanted to display this to my users, I'd probably want to sort by time slice, either ascending or descending. But we're going to do another command. What I want to do is I want to see my time slices on my rows. I want to see my status codes and my columns. I want to create a pivot table. And the command we're going to use for that is not pivot, it's actually transpose. So we're going to use the transpose command. And what do I want on my row? On my row, I want to put in underscore time slice. On my column, and notice that the reserved words are shown up in pink or purple, whatever color you want to call that. My column, I want to put status code. And so now what I'm seeing when I run this is here are my times and here are my status codes. The transpose command automatically sorts things for me. So the transpose command took care of sorting this and sorting this as well. Now, if I want to, I can start looking at bar charts or column charts or line charts. And the good news, this is starting to take shape of what I want to see. I really want to see all my arrows as a function of time. The problem is that I'm looking here at my 200s. For those of you who know status codes and web pages, 200 means everything worked great. That's not an error, that's not a problem. So I really want to turn off 200, and I can do that at the legend and get rid of it. This next one are 304s. 304s mean I got something from my cache. It's really not an error. So I can turn that off on my legend, and now I'm seeing my errors. And this is really what I want to show my users. This is what I'm going to share with others. The problem is I don't really want to see 200 or 304s. And unfortunately, if I did it this way and published this out into a dashboard, theoretically, my user could accidentally turn these on. And so that's not what I want. I want to really filter out my 200s and my 304s. And to filter it out, I'm going to add a where clause. So I'm going to add another line per my directions here, where I am going to add, here's my transpose, and I can create a chart, but now I want to add a where clause. Now, I'm going to do mine a little similar, but I'm going to start without the exclamation mark. I want to show you some things. Typically, you want to add your where clause as early as you can in the query. So, but I need to do it, and I can't do it before I get status code since I'm filtered on status code. So I want to do it right after I get status code, and I want to add a pipe, and I'm going to say where, and I'm going to type in some parentheses. The reason I'm going to type in parentheses is I've got an or situation, where this or this, where status code equals 200 or status code equals 304, okay? And for those of you who are thinking ahead here, you're like, what's that? Status code equals 200 or status code equals 304. That means that I'm showing the things I didn't want, that I want to filter out, right? So here's my 200s, here's my 304s. And to filter them out, what I'm simply going to do is change this. I'm going to put an exclamation mark in front of it. So now it reads where not status code equals 200 or status code equals 304. And now I'm getting the results that I'm looking for. Notice in my legend, I don't have a 200 or a 304. So now I've got the visualization that I want, the visualization that I wanted to create. Okay, let's just check what's in the QA box here. Bear with me a moment. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure. Did you put in columns specifically or columns? So again, if it helps, let me take this query and let me paste it and put it in the chat box for you all. Okay. So there's the query. If you want to copy it and paste it right out of the chat box, you can. Okay. But you're obviously having a problem with your transpose. So transpose row and then underscore time slice, space column, space status underscore code. Okay. So that pretty much takes care of chart number, lab number 3, where we've created this chart and we are in fact good to go. So next thing we want to do is create a dashboard. Okay. So I'm going to go to lab number 4, and we're going to take this and we're going to turn this into a dashboard. And I'm talking a little slower now because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to catch up. So I'm trying to pause between my sentences. The way we're going to do this is we're going to go back to our chart. And over here in my chart, there's a button that says Add to Dashboard. And then it gives me a panel name, or what I want to call the panel. And then it asks, what dashboard do I want? Now, again, here's where we need to deviate from the directions. So here in lab 4, when you type in your dashboard name, again, please append your initials and append your unique number. So down here, I want us to say Apache status codes, JWM 0618. By the way, sometimes this confuses this panel code and this query that I saved against this query. So I'm going to add just another number or something in there to make sure it's very unique. It's not the same as my query that I created and saved earlier. So I'm going to create, it says create a new dashboard. So it looked for any dashboards that meet this text. And if it doesn't find any, it gives me the option to create a new dashboard. And I do want to create a new dashboard, okay? Let's see here, hold on a second. There we go. Now there's a little switch here called Create Dashboard Beta. You're going to see this released probably in the next month or two, but it's going to be called Create Dashboard New instead of Create Dashboard Beta. We're adding some new dashboard functionality, and I think you're really going to like it. It's going to allow you to create dashboards within panels within dashboards very easily. It's going to allow you to edit those panels within that dashboard very easily. It's a very nice improvement, but for right now, I don't want to spend the time there, so I'm not going to worry about that. I do want to save this in my personal folder. I am going to click Add, and now presto changeo, I have a new dashboard. So here is my new dashboard. Here is my dashboard name. I can click on that pencil if I want to, and I can edit that. Maybe I want to get rid of those crazy characters. Again, here's my panel name, and again, I could edit that, change it. One of the first things, however, I notice is that this panel is a little small, okay? I'm in the over 50-year-old category, so I want something a little bigger and easier to see. So if I move my cursor down here to the corner, it changes into an arrow, and then I can drag and drop and put a new, drag this thing and resize it the way I want, okay? See what our questions are. Can we create charts on live data? Yes, give me a second. I'll show you how to do that. How do we go to the fundamentals page? I assume the question is fundamentals page, like the lab page, these lab fundamental page. Is that what you're asking? Again, you go in here to Sumo Logic, here under home, under certification, under this tutorial. That's how you get to the labs. Okay. All right, so I've taken this, I've created it, I've stretched it out. Now I want to add another panel up here. Up here on this panel is a kebab, and this kebab, again, more action, allows me to add another panel. Now in this particular tool, this particular form of dashboards, the only panel you can add is either a title panel or a text and title panel. If I want to add another visualization type panel, be it a map, be it whatever, I've got to create another query, and then I got to take that query and send it to this dashboard. Okay? So this is not the most efficient way of doing things. That's why we're coming out with that new form of dashboard. I said you should see it in about a month or two. If I click title, I must fill out as the title. If I click text, I fill out the text and the title. So here I'm going to put in some text, Apache status codes. And then here I'm going to put some directions for my user. These are the errors our customers are getting. Okay. And then I can click submit. Now it opens and puts that panel here. I'm going to make this panel basically the same size as my other panel. And I really want to change the order of them. So I can take any of these panels and I can move them over here to the left and position wherever the heck I want. Then I'm going to grab this one and move it up to the right. position it where I want. So normally I read left to right, top to bottom. So I'm going to read this first, then I'm going to look here. That's why we put the directions on the left. Now, one other thing. How many of you like the white background? How many of you want to make it a dark background? If you want to make it a dark background, again, on the More Action button, you can toggle the theme. That now makes it a dark background. Most people prefer the dark background. It's easier on their eyes. But you can change that. Do you want white? Do you want dark? Which is it? Which one works? Number 1 or number 2? Okay. You get the idea. Now, when you're all done with this and you're happy with it, you click Done Editing, and now you're no longer editing it. And this goes back to the question that was just asked a minute ago. Right now, it is looking at the 15-minute window that I specified. But if I put it to live mode, now as data comes in, so this deals with my live trail type stuff. When I go to live mode, as data starts trailing in, this thing will automatically start updating. So that's what my live mode does. If I didn't have live mode on, if I had it off, I'm looking at basically the last 15 minutes from the time I set this query up, and you'll see some data's fallen off. All right. But if I go to live mode, as new data comes in, my old data will go out and I'll see my new data. So that's how you make this behave like live trail. Okay. So thank you for asking the question. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that this lab is just about done? So we added our text panel, right? We changed the look and feel of our dashboard, great, right? We changed the background color. The last thing, I'm sorry. And then if I wanted to, I could also share it. How do I share it? The sharing icon is right here. So sharing, and then you can specify who you want to share it with. You can see who has access to this. And there's also a shareable URL that you can provide to other folks. A shareable URL, a full one, and then also, okay, that's right, this is dashboard. So a complete URL, sorry. This isn't just the query. If I want to go back to the underlying query, by the way, I click on this icon right here, just to the right of the time and left of the filter funnel icon, okay? And that's lab 4. That's lab 4. Let's go to lab 5. Let's talk about modifying a dashboard. By the way, I should be getting these other labs done here in about the next 15 minutes. So give you time for your exam, and we'll pretty much be wrapping up class here on time. So lab number 5, what they want us to do is they want us to modify a dashboard. They want us to go back to our old Apache app that we installed just a little while ago. So again, in my navigation pane, under my personal folder, you guys installed the Apache app, right? This big folder. And under this big folder, we want to find the Apache overview page, and we want to run that page. So we want to go back and view this, and we're going to modify this particular visualization, okay? We're going to modify this particular query, okay? So in lab 5, they want us to find this, open it up, and they want us to filter this so that we only see data for the United States. Now, I realize that you guys are all in India, so filtering for the United States doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. You'd probably want to filter for India. I get that. I don't believe we've got any data for India, so that's why we don't want to filter for India. But what I want to do is I want to show you how we go back and modify this. So here I am in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this icon right there. That's going to take me back to my underlying query. Now, let me explain this underlying query a little bit to you, because I know many of you are going to say, hey, I want to do a map. I get it. So let me comment out these lines. I want to show you how you can comment out a whole bunch of lines. First of all, many of you probably learned Java or C or C#. And so you, with like Java, C or C#, you could theoretically type in a slash, a forward slash, and a star to start your comments, and then a star forward slash to end your comments. But that's not the most efficient way of doing that. The most efficient way of commenting out a bunch of lines here is if you put your cursor up here in the query area, and if you're on a Windows machine, hold down the Alt key, your cursor will change into a plus sign. If you're on a Mac, you hold down the Option key, and it changes to a plus sign. Then you draw a line down. You drag and draw a line down, and then whatever you type goes across all the lines. So that's probably one of the most valuable things you'll learn today from a practical perspective. So again, you use the Alt key, and you drag a line down. Hold the Alt key down while you drag a line. If you're on a Windows keyboard. If you're on a Mac keyboard, it's the Option key. So now I've commented out all of these lines in one shot. So again, here's my Apache access logs for this time frame up here. I'm looking at my data. Great, no fuss, no muss. Now I am doing a parse regular expression where I am looking for 1 to 3 digits followed by a period, followed by 1 to 3 digits, followed by a period, followed by 1 to 3 digits, followed by a period, followed by 1 to 3 digits. And that's going to extract out my IP address. Now that IP address is what I need for my lookup. I do not need these other 2 lines. Don't at all, but I've got them in there. I could leave these 2 lines commented, these 2 parse regexes, and it wouldn't make any difference. Now what these parse regexes are doing, so they're simply parsing out some other fields. Earlier we did a parse anchor. We could have done a parse regex and done the same thing. Got my method, my refer, my size, my source IP, all that stuff. So those are just parse regexes to do that. Parse regular expressions, looking for the formats. So you can use parse regexes if you want. You can use parse anchors. It's up to you. If you want to use a parse anchor, the logs must be consistently formatted. So you might see that again later in a little bit. Now, this next line is what it's all about. I'm going to use a lookup command, and we're going to talk a lot more about the lookup command tomorrow. But the way you read a lookup command is you actually start at the end of it. So I'm going to take source IP, and source IP I got from here. I'm going to take this source IP. I'm going to pass it in as IP to this URL. This URL goes out to a partner of ours called Newstar. And Newstar will take this IP address in, and it will proceed to give me all of this information. Latitude, longitude, country code, country name, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I run this, now I'm seeing in my messages my latitude, my longitude, my country name, my country code, my city. Again, these are all listed in alphabetical order. And then in order to display a map, I need to have latitude, longitude, and count. Those 3 things I must have in order to display a map. So I am going to aggregate and count by my latitude, longitude, country name, all that fun stuff. So now that I've counted it, let me go back to my data, my table here. So here's my count, here's my latitude, longitude, and all the other good stuff that I'm counting. By the way, I'm going to sort that count. And because I have the latitude, longitude, and count, I have this little icon enabled, which allows me to turn this into a Mapbox plot. And so there is, in fact, my data put on a Mapbox plot, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to filter this where my country name equals United States. I could either do it for country name equals United States or country code equals US. So I'm going to add a where clause to filter my data, okay? Where am I going to add that? Well, I can't add it before I get the field. So right after I get the field country name or country code, whatever I'm filtering for, is where I'm going to add my where clause. Start it with a pipe, where, I'm just going to use country name equals, double quote, between my double quotes, United States. Now when I run this, if I look at my data coming back at my table, you'll see all I'm seeing is United States, United States, United States. And eventually when this finishes, if I click and convert this to a map, it's going to show me United States data only, and it rescales my map to show me only the available information. So that's what we've done. Let me just check the Q&A questions here, make sure we're good to go. Okay. What is the use of no drop? I appreciate you asking the question. I will answer the question, but I'm going to talk more about it tomorrow. Because no drop, what it does is it says, you know, normally when I do a regex or some sort of a parse statement, not only does it extract that field, but it also deletes any fields or any messages that don't match that field. So it actually does two things. When I add the no drop to it, it does not delete anything. It does not remove anything. So that's what no drop does, okay? And again, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. I'll give you some good examples. So thanks for asking. Now what I want to do is I've updated this query. Now I'm filtering for the United States. And what I want to do is I simply want to click on this button that says update my dashboard. And when I do, it asks, do I want to use my original time range or do I want to use this new time range? I'm going to stick with the original time range. I'm going to click apply and presto changeo. It's now going to update this map and it's going to filter it only for data in the United States. Now, as my query is running, my bar is going across, my green bar there. When my green bar is done, it'll automatically resume the page in or resume the map, so I only see data for the United States. So just bear with me a second while this happens. By the way, we're going to talk about that geolocation and that putting things on a map more tomorrow. We got a whole lab specified for that. And I'll show you some documentation and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. Come back tomorrow when we learn more. As you can see, we're all beating on the server, so the server's taking its little sweet time. But eventually it will finish up. I'm just making sure this thing zooms in and we're almost done. And there we go, we're good to go. So let us now focus on, that's lab 5, by the way. Let's focus on lab 6. 2 more labs to go. Lab 6 is focused on creating an alert. And I'll be honest with you, the lab in this exercise doesn't do this conversation justice, okay? The tomorrow's lab will do a better job. But to create an alert, what we're gonna do is we're simply gonna go back here. We're going to go into this visitor location query. Remember, we extracted out this query where we've got this information and we're filtering for the United States. I also want to look at my table with my rows, and there's a reason why. I've got 8 rows here. That becomes important when you set up an alert. And normally when you create an alert, the last thing you typically do on your alert is you're going to add some sort of a where clause where you're looking for some sort of outlier, some sort of a problem, whatever. Because in some cases, when you get an alert, you want to be notified every time the alert runs. But in a lot of cases, you don't be alerted until an alert condition exists. That's why we put in a where clause. And as I said, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Now, how do I create an alert? It's really simple. I save as, and I give this thing a name or whatever, but how I create an alert is down here at the bottom. I schedule this search. I click on schedule this search. And then I specify how often do I want this to run. So if this runs every 15 minutes, I want this to run every 15 minutes. This runs every 24 hours, I want it to run daily. So you pick what you want and how often you want it to run. And then you get to pick your time zone and all that fun stuff. But the question is, do I want to send you a message every time this is done, yes or no? Or do I want to do it when a following condition is met? The alert condition. Well, if I click down here on alert condition, I see things like operators like equal to, greater than or equal to, fewer than, that sort of thing. Well, then the question is, I say greater than, what's this number of results? What does this number of results mean? That number of results comes from the number of rows you get back as your results. That's your result set. So if my case, if I said greater than 8, it would not send this alert to me because I only have 8 results. If I had more than that, I had 9 or more, then it would send it to me if I specified a condition greater than 8. So let me go back in here again, specify my time. Specify I want this to run every time the search is complete. And then how do you want it to notify you? You want it to notify you via email. Do you want me to run a script? Again, you might have an alert based on somebody trying to access certain ports, and then your script can go lock those ports down. You can do a ServiceNow connection if you want to. You can create a webhook into other systems. So for example, here I click on webhook. I can send myself a Slack message or a Teams message or whatever kind of message I want. So you can create hooks into other systems if you want to. And I can also save this as a database index. Now, most of you are probably going to choose to notify yourself via email. Fine. Specify who your recipients are. Here in the subject line, you can put a combination of static and or dynamic text if you want. And then the question is in the message, what do you want to send? Do you want to send the query, the result set, the histogram, and also maybe a CSV attachment, keeping in mind that your mail system may or may not like CSV attachments, okay? So then you save this, and you've got an alert scheduled, and you've got an alert ready to go. That is how you create an alert. And we're going to talk more about alerts tomorrow and probably give you a little better example. So there's your alert that you can run, and that basically is that. Let me see if we have any questions. Okay. Okay. Somebody asked earlier in our filtering, could we use something like country name equals United? And that would filter out anything like, can you use wildcards in your where clause? You can do it, except you're not going to use equals. You're going to say country name matches United star. But yes, you can do something like that. Okay. So good question. Thank you. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So we'll get more into the query tomorrow. Tomorrow is all about managing the query and doing these searches. Today was really designed to be kind of an overview of the product. And that brings us to lab number 7, where you can talk about getting help. And the help is already, we've already gone through the help. We've already gone through the documentation. We've already gone through the Learn Now tab. We've gone through the communities. We've gone through all of that fun stuff. And we wanted to point out the documentation and all these resources, because again, you've got these resources when you take the exam. So lab 7's done. So now we're ready for you to take your certification exam. In order to take your certification exam, you're going to want to log out of our training environment. In fact, how do you log out of the training environment? Well, if you go into the navigation pane, down here where it has training plus user or whatever, if you click on that, you'll see there's an option to sign out. You want to sign out and log out because you're going to want to go to your company's Sumo Logic environment, and you're going to want to log in as you. Training Plus User at sumologic.com has taken this exam and passed it literally thousands of times. They got credit for the exam. We want you to get credit for the exam. So we want you to log into your company's Sumo Logic environment. And if you don't have a company's Sumo Logic environment, bear with me. I'll give you some information on how you can get one, okay, at no cost. All right. I'll let you sign up for a demo account. But for those of you who do log into your Sumo Logic environment, by the way, if you want to log into both your Sumo Logic environment while you're logged into the training environment, you either probably want to do it with 2 separate browsers, or you want to do it, if you're like in Google Chrome, you can use an incognito tab. And log in through that incognito tab. Because if you try to log into the same browser on multiple tabs, when you log into the one system, it's going to automatically log you out of the previous system. That's why we want you to use 2 separate browsers, an incognito tab or whatever, okay? All right, once you log in, again, I'm going to clear up all this stuff. I don't need it. You're going to want to go to the Home tab. You're going to want to go to the certification page. Here in the certification page where it says Fundamentals, there's a button that says click on Take This Exam. Now, please bear with me. Most of you, when you click on this, it's going to advance you to the next page. Some of you, it may not. It may keep you on this page. You click on it again, it keeps you on this page. You click on it again, it keeps you on this page. How you fix that is real simple. You're going to go into the navigation pane one more time. You're going to go into the help area. And under help, you're going to click on community. When you click on community, you're going to get a message. A pop-up's going to appear that says, we'd like to verify your email address. See, the reason we're having this issue is it's an issue between your single sign-on provider and Sumo Logic. So by getting this panel, it's going to send you an email that you're going to then open up, and there's a link in it. You're going to click on that link, and it's going to verify your email address. And so now the SSO and the Sumo Logic environment are happy together. They can play nice together. So as I said, what's going to happen is you're going to go in here. If you have that problem, you're going to click on help, you're going to click on community. That is then going to bring a pop-up message that's going to appear that says we'd like to send you an email. You're either going to click allow or okay or whatever that button is. Then you're going to go find that email. And in that email, you're going to find there's a link in it. You're going to click on that link, and now this problem is magically going to go away. So that every time from now on, when you click take the exam, it advances you to the next page. So here I am on that next page. You'll see there's not much here. You can see I've completed my exam. That's fine. If I want good, you click go to course. This now takes you to the page where you're ready to start your exam. Once you click start test, your time starts. You got 60 minutes. You got 30 questions. They are all multiple guess questions. Passing score is 75%. This is open note, open book. And please, if you get hung on a question, please ask us. Okay, save yourself some time and effort and frustration. Okay, we will try to steer you the right way. One other thing up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's a gear. By the way, when you take the test and whether you pass it or fail it, you'll be able to see the questions you got right and the questions you got wrong. Make sure you review that. If you do fail it, you get to take it again up to 3 times. If you fail it past 3 times, then I need to reset your account. But I don't think that's going to happen. This is a pretty simple exam. I think you'll do all fairly well. Up here on this gear, if you click on it, you can download your certificate if you want to and share it on your social media, on LinkedIn, okay? When you do pass, if you do pass, it'll say congratulations. You'll see that panel appear and you can download your certificate. But if you're like me and you forgot to do it when you initially passed, you can go in here again, like I said, and download it anytime that you want. Are there any questions about the certification exam? Also, somebody's going to ask, do I have to take it right now? Nope, you can take it anytime you want to. But we recommend you take it while the information is fresh in your mind and you have instructional resources here to help you. Speaking of instructional resources, next Wednesday, the 24th, we are offering a Sumo exam time where each of us instructors, there are 3 of us, will take different times. And you'll see it on our website, where you actually see it on LinkedIn site, what times we're covering. So I think I'm one of probably closest to your time zone. I'm doing it from, looks like about 4 p.m. your time, 4 p.m. your time for a couple of hours. So if you want to take it then, you're welcome to do so. But if there are any questions here, let me see what we got in the Q&A. What credentials should I log in? You want to log in with your credentials, your company's credentials, okay? And somebody says, I do not have a Sumo Logic environment. How can I do that? We'll fix that to you here in a second, okay? How do I register for email using our official email? Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but for those of you who don't have a Sumo Logic environment, I'm going to put in a URL here in just a second that's going to allow you to request a demo environment. So this URL right here, sumologic.com/signup, is where you can sign up for a Sumo Logic environment, and you can use that Sumo Logic demo environment to take your exam. So I'm going to put this in the chat box for those who do not have a company Sumo Logic environment. Please click here and ask and get a demo environment. Okay, there you go. I just put that in the chat box. You should be good to go. Any questions? Any other concerns, questions, issues? Okay. I'm getting an error. Oh, okay. Somebody's getting an error that they can't take the last name. That's an issue with our LMS. And if you would, for my anonymous attendee, I can give you a different URL to go to, and I'll take care of that. So bear with me a second while I do that. Any other questions besides that one? I'm going to stop my sharing for a second while I quickly go out here and grab the other URL that I want to send you. Okay, okay. In here and okay. What point refers on the taupe? What's the point refers on the? I'm not sure I understand your question, Baven. So if you could help me understand what that question is, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to stop my recording and we'll let you guys do the exam. Thanks a lot for attending. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. Okay. Where to go for the exam? I gotcha. Okay. Where you go for the exam, let me share my screen one more time. And how you get to the exam is you're going to log into your Sumo Logic environment. You're going to, your company Sumo Logic environment. You can click on home. You're going to click on certification. And here is where you're going to click on take the exam. This is the fundamentals exam. You're going to click on this button. Tomorrow, we'll go over here to Search Mastery and take that exam. But for today, that's where you go. Any other questions? Make sure we're good here on the Q&A. Okay. On top, it says some point. Okay. Oh, I see. We get points. You do on our learning management system, you do get points, but what's going to happen here is that we're switching learning management systems, okay? So we will transfer your records and stuff over, but the new learning management system will provide additional points. We're going to have a whole new LMS where you can take online classes, face-to-face classes, certifications, and you get points for completing stuff as you go through. And those points, right now, we don't have anything set up for those points to do anything for you, okay? But it says you can get some 5,020 points. Yep, and eventually you'll be able to do something with those points, okay? Maybe you get some swag or something like that. That's the plan. But right now, we're not there yet. We are still a little ways off, okay? So thanks, Baven. Appreciate the question. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Any other questions? Let me stop the recording.